saw black, he saw white, he saw Asian, praying, drinking from the same fountain.
He did.
And he said, so it really doesn't have to be like that.
Because he'd always advocated segregation, separation of the blacks and the whites.
Because he's like, well, if you don't want us, we don't want to be here.
Yep.
So that was his thinking, and once he saw that in Mecca, he's like, we can be together. And he changed his philosophy, like, I'm for anybody that's willing to help me and my people, or any oppressed people, gain equality, gain justice in America. So for LeBron to read that, and LeBron Skip, now you know what he is about this social activism. Remember, he wore the hat the other night, had, Make America Great, Make America Rest the officer that killed Breonna Taylor. So, Skip, remember we had this conversation, and there are a lot of people saying that they shouldn't go down to the bubble because this is going to be all forgotten.
Agreed.
But if anything, Skip, they brought it more to the forefront.
I hope so.
Because all they do is talk about, and everybody that we realize while we're down here, they're talking about Breonna Taylor. They're talking about George Floyd. But back to LeBron. Skip, LeBron is very conscious. LeBron is very woke. And I think it says a lot about the man, and I think we're going to talk about Masai Ujiri a little later, Skip. It says a lot. LeBron James makes $100 million a year. A lot of the problems that affect average minorities in America won't see him in his gated community. But that's what makes him so great. That's what makes him unique, is because he's willing to shine a light and give a voice to people that cannot be seen and cannot be heard. Because, and that's the thing, Skip, when everybody talk about, oh, LeBron, you're in your $100 million house and you make all this and that. Why do you care? Because that's what when you have empathy, that's what you do. You see, because he wasn't always that. He grew up with a single mom in Akron, Skip, in the housing project. And he bounced house to house. And he talks about how his mom struggled to pay and had bills and how he had to go live with people. So for me, that book, I highly recommend it. Not just for African Americans, but for America. I agree. Read that book, and you'll have a greater understanding of not only of Malcolm X, but the plight of a black in America.
Okay, I got it. So before I talk about the iconic book you just discussed by an iconic writer named Alex Haley, if they don't know who he was, we'll get to that in just a second. I'm just going to...
Probably more well known for Roots.
Roots, 1976. This book was 1965. As told to Alex Haley, the great Alex Haley, by Malcolm X. I'm going to deal with this just from a basketball level. LeBron took the book to the post-game interview, and again, they're separated by a partition, but he's sitting next to Anthony as Anthony is asked the opening questions, because obviously he had a huge game.
He had the game, correct.
LeBron sat, according to the reporters, reading his book while Anthony was addressing the opening questions, and I found it a little disrespectful. It was his night, and LeBron is so shrewd. He knows what's going to happen. He obviously wanted to be asked, if you're going to sit reading the book in front of the reporters and the virtual reporters, you're going to get asked about the autobiography of Malcolm X. So you're going to distract a little bit from Anthony's monster night, one of the great nights of his career. And you're also going to distract from the fact that LeBron scored the fewest points in a win in his playoff history, 241 games, 10 points. So he's such a shrewd operator with the media. I always tell you, he plays the media like a baby grand piano, that he said to himself, I'm going to take my book because I want the focus on my book. It's going to take a little away from Anthony, but it's going to take a lot away from my night, which was not a great night. What did he end up with?
4 of 11.
He's 4 of 11 from 10 points, and he had 6 turnovers, which equaled his 6 rebounds and 7 assists. So by his standards...
He didn't play well.
He didn't play well. And it didn't matter because they won by 1 million. So, again, that's going to get lost in the shuffle. So I thought it was a smart move by LeBron for distraction purposes. But to your point, yes, he tends to get swept up in what he's reading, and I think he is swept up in this book. I don't know how much time he actually has to read, but whatever it is, he's getting absorbed by this book because you will. I'm a little surprised he's coming a little late to this party because he's 35 years of age, and this is something you should read in high school, right? It should, because it's powerful. black or white, but any color, you could read this and you can learn from it.
Well, Skip, you got to be really woke to read that book, because that's not something they're recommending in high school.
Nope.
Maybe now.
Yeah, maybe.
But unless you're very conscious of what's actually going on, you're probably not, that's not a book that you're going to gravitate, because you've heard so many negative things about Malcolm X. Skip. So why would I read a book about someone that I've heard so much negativity about? It's not until you read this book or you do some research on your own to understand what Malcolm X became.
So LeBron talked about what a great man Malcolm X was and how he wished he could have met him and obviously Dr. King, those two. And for me, from a distance, again, from a white perspective, the Malcolm X that I followed closely through my high school years, he did a prison stint for, I think it was larceny, but when he came out, there was greatness about him as a leader, an orator, a speaker, a thinker. He had greatness about him. I personally found it troubling and disturbing because he was advocating for a while violence, progress through violence. And yet it was about, if you're going to be violent with us, we're going to be violent back. And just remember, it was a period in the 60s when black people were hanging from trees in the South in this country.
That is correct.
So that troubled me. And the whole idea of segregation, I want, you know how I am, I want that. And yet this book, as it evolves through the book, it's about a spiritual conversion. He becomes Sunni, he goes to Mecca on a pilgrimage, and he is woke in a new way.
Then this epiphany he had.
Yes, he has an epiphany. So it is an iconic book. And for those who don't know Roots, it was the next iconic book written by Alex Haley. And it's significant. Both are extremely powerful and significant, and I recommend both books. If you don't know, you need to learn from those two books. So I'm proud of LeBron for doing it. I'm not sure that was the right moment to introduce it. They said he was seen at practice reading it.
Well, he's on a stationery back there.
Okay, that's where it was. Yeah, okay. So that was the first picture. But again, I didn't want to see him upstage his co-star, because that was some night for his co-star. It
was, Skip. So if I'm reading you and hearing you correctly, you do not have a problem with him reading a book. You have a problem at that moment bringing the book.
Wrong place, wrong time for that. But he knew what was going to happen. He wanted to speak about it. He's not even fit. Well, you can see there, he's barely started, right? And he said he's only read a portion of it. And I'm sure he wants to speak more about it as he goes through the spiritual conversion segments of the book. So here we go. But again, I'm great with that. Not great with the timing.
Well, this is probably something he talked to AD about. AD probably said, "Bro, hey,
do it.
As long as you're up there with me, I'm cool with it." Because it's not very often, Skip, that LeBron normally, people, a lot of times when LeBron goes to the podium with someone else, they still only want to talk to LeBron, like as if that other person isn't actually there. And so when you have a podium, they call it a podium game. That means,
it's a podium game. No, it was.
Normally, the superstar always gets to go to the podium. But Anthony had a night. And hopefully he doesn't look at what LeBron bringing this book, this autobiography of Malcolm X by Alex Haley. Hopefully he doesn't look at it